Okay, welcome back, everybody. Episode 5. Today we're going to get a little more gritty, I guess, because we ask you guys every podcast, hey, what do you want to talk about, right? And this time, this episode, we're responding. We had a guy ask, how do you stand out, basically? So today, yes, it's about baseball being a game of failure, right? We're failing a good portion of the time. It's a hard game. We all get that. But the content for today is about you being you, but the fucking Yellowstone rip version of you. Mm-hmm. Because that's what it has to be.
Yep.
So what we're talking about today to respond to those questions, it has to be one of those days where we're getting raw, we're getting real, because there's no other way to do it. There's no other way to stand out. That internal dialogue has to be raw. Yep. It has to be real. It has to be fuck you.
Yep.
Wouldn't you agree with that?
1,000%. And that's the one thing that I've gotten on my last few posts. People are like, hey, I appreciate that you're not afraid to tell it how it is, because in reality, there's a lot of shit that goes on in college baseball, in the baseball community as a whole, no matter what level, that people are afraid to talk about. There are people that are encouraging, our entire generation is being encouraged to, be small, make sure that you're focused on other people's feelings, make sure you're not being too confident. Like, cry me a river, dude. If you really want to make it far in this game, you have to go out there and try to freaking abuse everybody and show no signs of remorse in the slightest. That is the only way to freaking do it. The game is hard. It's competitive. There are grown men playing. The only way you are really going to get after it and be yourself and make a huge impact on the game is if you go out there and be an absolute dog no matter what.
Yeah, there is no playing nice.
No.
And I think Yellowstone is the ultimate example. Mm-hmm. And there's a reason why that show is blowing up. Mm-hmm. It's because those guys have purpose. Those guys are men. They're not playing nice. They're not worried about everybody else's feelings. Mm-hmm. And a lot of this, the focus of what we're talking about, this is more internal. You're not going to go around being an absolute derelict dick to everybody.
Can't.
We're talking about the inner dialogue that goes on. Because, yes, baseball is hard. Even the best of the best feel like they're failing half the time minimum, over half the time.
Right.
So the only way to navigate this and to really be the best version of ourselves is we got to have absolute fuck you behind everything that we do.
Yep.
That's got to be the driving force.
Yep. No matter what age you're at. Because I made a video on social media the other day, a little snippet from our last episode, and I had a 14-year-old kid comment saying, so this is all, when it comes to being cocked up and carrying yourself like you're better than everybody else, you're not referring to like mouthing off and like being cocky. And I'm like, no. This has nothing to do with what you vocalize. You do not vocalize being a freaking hard ass. You don't vocalize, hey, I'm better than you. That's not how you operate. This is all, like you said, the internal dialogue, the conversation you're having with yourself, right?
Yeah, which impacts our state, and state is what this is about. Mm-hmm. And ultimately, when it comes to body language, physiology, and focus, we have to look at this from the standpoint of, yes, we want to be respectful, we want to be nice, but when it comes to body language and internal dialogue, who gives a fuck if we offend the guy next to us?
Right.
We have to carry ourselves a certain way because the game demands it. Really, the world demands it, in spite of the fact that on social media, you're a hero if you claim offense to whatever he's doing or whatever you said.
Right.
Ultimately, though, my mental filter for that is that's chicken shit. I ain't about all that.
Agreed.
And to make our way in the game of baseball or even in life, yes, we may always need to be respectful outwardly, right? But inwardly, that's a whole different animal.
Yep. And unfortunately, I guess this is more of a question for you. Do you think that young guys in particular that are going to be freshmen, right? I feel like the general consensus with that is these teams, these older guys want those freshmen to be quiet, to shut the hell up, to play small, to know their place, right? That's the general consensus. in baseball right now?
Well, okay. The answer to that is yes and no. I'm not going to be a pop-off artist. I'm not going to push back. I'm going to be a freshman and try not to be like the target for all of that bullshit.
Mm-hmm.
But inwardly and with the way I carry myself, it's going to be as in your face can get.
That's what I was getting at. Yeah.
Yeah. The way I carry myself, if it threatens you, that's on you. I can't control how you feel about what I'm doing.
Right.
And the way I'm going to carry myself and my inner dialogue, yeah, that would offend if I said it, but I'm sure as hell not going to say it either.
Right.
You know what I mean?
It's definitely a balance. And that's one thing that I think a lot of players got to keep in mind. As freshmen have jobs, right? You're on the bucket shagging during BP, which is a horrible job in the fall when it's hot as hell. But yeah, do that job. You're supposed to take the bag that weighs 100 pounds that has all the freaking team bats in it on the bus. Yes, do that job. Don't push back. But when you step between those lines for that game to start, you have to turn into a whole different human being where you are going out there. You don't care if you look cocky with your body language. You are going out there and playing with absolute certainty, absolute fire, and believing internally that you are better than those guys that are competing with you or that are against you in that game. It's the only way to do it, no matter what age.
Totally agree.
Yeah.
And it comes back to that principle that the quality of our career is going to come down to the quality of our states most of the time. And our state is how we feel in mind and how we feel in body. And if external factors are geared towards making me feel small, then what's the quality of my state going to be?
Right.
And the smaller they're trying to make me feel and make me play, the bigger I'm going to go on body language and that internal dialogue.
Right.
Because fuck all that.
Yep.
I'm there to play, man. And I'll tell you what, from a coaching standpoint and from a veteran standpoint, a veteran who plays and matters, I'm not trying to do that to freshmen. No shot. We might need those guys to win.
Right.
But that's out of our control. Mm-hmm. Because ultimately, to be that Yellowstone fuck you version, we've got to be men.
Right.
We've got to be cocked up. We cannot ever let external factors dictate how we feel, because the quality of our career comes down to how we feel most of the time.
Right.
And that's on us.
Right.
Never let any of that shit dictate how you feel, how I feel. It ain't happening.
The only players that are going to try to make you feel small when it comes to older guys on a roster are the ones that are super insecure and let outside factors dictate how they feel most of the time. Those are the only guys that are insecure, small, worried about you taking their jobs. Those are the only ones that are going to chirp at you and try to make you feel small.
Yeah, and they don't matter.
No, exactly.
The loudest guy in the room is the weakest guy in the room. Mm-hmm. That applies across the board. I don't care if it's in a clubhouse or a workplace. Mm-hmm. That guy's weak.
Yep.
And we don't have to spout off to be strong, to have presence, because ultimately, like I just don't see how any man can let external factors dictate how we feel. There's a million things that I could focus on that would make me feel weak, but I'm not going to go there. Right. I'm not going to sit in them. I might acknowledge it for a second, but I'm shifting my focus back. I'm shifting my physiology back, and those things are a habit. I wasn't just genetically predisposed to be able to control my physiology to put me in state,
right,
or to control my focus. I disciplined myself to do that. Mm-hmm. And it's a habit. And it starts with being mindful of it and making it a priority.
Yep. That's what I was getting ready to say. Being mindful of your state at all times. Be mindful of what's going on around you, but knowing that you have the power and you are 100% in control of how you respond to whatever's going on around you. Because that's the one thing a lot of guys struggle with. They've got Team D, right? Live D, to where you're playing third base, or 21 outs, I think is a fantastic example. Guy boots one when you're at 18 outs, throws it away, and everybody's like, oh, dude, like, what the hell, man? Come on, figure it out. And that's when the older guys start chirping, right? That will happen at one point. Game's freaking hard. You might be playing on a freaking goat track, might get a bad hop. First baseman might not pick it, might not be in position, whatever. But you got to be mindful of what you do after that, because your mind can't go to, oh man, I just fucking ruined it for everybody else. You have to go to, oh, hit me another one. Shit's not happening again. It's not happening. And you can do that no matter where you're at mentally right now. It doesn't matter. You can be the smallest guy in the room right now, the most insecure player there, playing small, and come out tomorrow and look like a dude that is totally different, that is looking to abuse you no matter what. It's all about the power of decisions.
Yeah, making a decision to not be timid, to not be fearful, instead of, oh no, what if, it's you watch this shit.
Exactly.
And you just lock in on that target and just put it through that guy's chest.
Yep.
You have to attack the game, and that's on you. We have to control our states, and we have to use our physiology, I think, is the quickest way to do it.
Yep.
And that's where the whole Yellowstone thing comes in to me. Those guys get up every morning, 3, 4 o'clock in the morning, and there's just no weakness. There's no slumped shoulders. There's no look of pain on their faces. You can't complain in that environment. All of that is just disciplined into them to use their bodies a certain way because of who they're around and what the expectation is.
Yep.
So you also have to be mindful of who you're associating with, what their vibe is, what they're about. Because if you're around a bunch of guys who constantly bitch and complain and they fall into all that negativity, pay attention to what you're doing with your body, with your focus, because we become the 5 people that we associate with most. So be mindful of that, because it's not enough, man. It's not what you want to be about.
Every team is going to have a lot of guys that complain, that are negative. Oh, man, I hate doing this at practice. Oh, that guy's way too full of himself, way too cocky. Guys that sit around and complain about the quality of BP, whatever's going on at practice. You will find those guys at every single college baseball program. And for these young guys that are looking to make an impact and go out there and play cocked up and be in the best physical, peak state, you have to make sure that you are not surrounding yourself with those guys. And if you are mindful of where you let your mind and body go. Because, like you said, you are only as good as the 5 guys that you surround yourself with.
Yeah, and if I was in that situation, and sometimes it's tough to get out of that because there's a handful of freshmen, you're sharing a dorm, they're right there, like those are your boys. And you don't want to bail out on your boys, but if you can find a better state, if you can find a better focus and you use your body and you're able to find certainty, you can pull them out of that bullshit that they're in fast. Because when a group of people, whether it's 2 or whether it's 200, are conversing, having a conversation, whoever's the most certain is going to influence everybody else.
Right.
So, hey, take that on as a challenge. If I got a bunch of guys around me that are absolute gut midgets, I'm not going to allow it. I'm going to raise the standard. I'm going to force them by example to demand more and set that bullshit aside so it doesn't bring us all down.
Yep.
You did that at U-High. That culture was, in my opinion, was all wrong. It was all about pounding the lower guys down to make the other guys, the older guys, feel like they were more than.
Yep.
And you put a stop to that shit hard because you had the confidence and the belief to do it.
I did that. That was senior year. Right before that spring season started, I sat down with, I think we had 6 or 7 seniors that year. Sat them down at school. I'm like, look, you guys know what this team was about in the past. You were hearing them talking smack about young guys, making them feel like shit. We're not doing that this year because we have a real opportunity to go far in this season and have a damn good time and beat people into the ground. But we are not going to tear anybody down. And if I hear anybody doing it, you're getting popped in the mouth. What I said straight up. And they all just looked at me and some were like, okay, dude. But nobody popped off. Nobody had an issue. And then what happened? We had multiple guys. Bubba, who was a freshman, a skinny freshman, come in and hit 4-hole and play third and get first team All-State. Nate Hardman, sophomore, came in and was a dude for us. Parker Matheson
Yeah.
came in, was an absolute dude for us. And that was because we built a freaking culture and a team environment that encouraged those guys to be big and not small to appease however we feel.
Yeah, and it wasn't just that the team was more successful because of that. It was a much better place to be.
Right.
And that culture attracted better players. Mm-hmm. And look where that program's at now. I'm not giving you,
No,
total credit because there's a lot of factors that played into that.
Absolutely.
But it did change the culture there, and it made it a lot more fun.
Yep. And you can do that at the college level. You can do that as a freshman. And it doesn't mean you go in and be rah-rah, Johnny leader. You don't want to do that. But there are going to be a lot of times, especially early on, where those freshmen are bitching and complaining and playing the freaking victim and whatever's going on. And you can shut that down and be like, look, we're not having that here, man. Like, if you want to have the opportunity and the chance to go out there and make an impact and make us better, you cannot sit around and freaking feel sorry for yourself. Can't happen.
Yeah, no, I agree. And when it comes to that environment of who you're associating with, it's basically about making a decision. These are the reasons why I'm going to demand more. I'm gonna actively command my own state. Number one, because that's what men do. That's what John fucking Dutton does. Mm-hmm. But also because, do you want to be the guy who like darkens the room, or do you want to be the guy that brings energy and light to the room? Mm-hmm. And the reason why I mention those reasons is because reasons always come first. We have to know our reasons why we're doing it. Mm-hmm. It's the same principle. 80% is the strength of our psychology, 20% is the mechanics. Our reasons why are everything in this situation. So make a decision that you're going to command your own state, not only because it's going to make you a better player, but because it's going to bring the energy level up. And to me, that's never a bad thing.
No, and that's why teams make it as far as they do. That's why Southeastern was so damn good and why they're going to continue to be good. And it's not just because they brought in old guys that are polished. Yeah, that definitely helps. But for an example, my second year at Southeastern, so I only played one game because of my spine, right? But Guada that year, he came back. He was an absolute dude for Southeastern, had to go home to a different country to provide for his family, to work. He literally went home, gave up the game for a year because he had to go work, which none of us have any idea what that's like, living here.
Yeah, that's different.
We have no idea. This guy went home, and he called Denkel. He's like, look, I'm good. I'd love it if you welcome me back. And this was in the middle of the year. And Denkel's like, done. Brought us all together, and they were like, hey, Guada's back. He's an absolute dude. Take care of him. Dude came in, was kind, was amazing. One of the best dudes I've ever met in my life, and the most talented. Ended up breaking a home run record, which was really cool. Him and Bo both broke it.
Oh, he was so good.
Yeah. But we had a couple games where stuff broke bad, right? We were just beating everybody, 10-run rule. That was the expectation, right? Was to have a minimum 40-win season. Well, we were struggling in a doubleheader, right? Guys were starting to break bad. Throwing helmets, body language went to trash. Shoulders went to being slouched. Guada Cade, his first two ABs, got punched out on balls as far off the plate. He didn't throw anything. He came in, went back to being who he was, and he got us all in the dugout. And he's like, what the fuck are y'all doing? He said, do you know who you are? Do you know how you're acting right now? We are supposed to go out here and abuse these guys. You're all being fucking weak. Figure it out. And it was half English, half Spanish, right?
Yeah.
And then all the guys that were, Hispanic were like, yeah. And all of us got the message by his freaking presence and by the way he carried himself and he just commanded the entire team right there. And that just flipped the switch. And if anybody showed any weakness, he was all over their ass. And then other guys that were there picked up on it, saw other guys being weak. They were on their ass. And that team won the World Series.
So one guy with conviction, with a little bit different context, right? Because he hadn't been close to the team. Mm-hmm. He comes from a standpoint to where things are in perspective, a better, healthier perspective. and he makes a bold statement, leads by example, and it made a drastic shift in the culture.
Mm-hmm.
That's the power of a guy demanding more of himself from a state standpoint.
Yep.
Because a man uses every tool at his disposal to give the people around him, the people closest to him, his very best.
Right.
Yes, there are a million reasons to feel bad and to let yourself fall into a weak state. But do you care enough about yourself? Do you care enough about the people around you to set all that bullshit aside, man up, and give people your very best version? I don't think there's a greater gift that we can give the people around us
It's powerful stuff right
than
there.
our very best.
Right.
And that's what we're doing here. That's what all of this is about. There's so much out there that we can focus on and get pulled into all the bullshit. But men don't do that. They can't do that.
Yep. It's about controlling what you can control. Straight up. You can't control if you get punched out by a fastball 1.5 feet off the plate. You can't control if they bring in a freaking extra guy at break at your position. You can't control any of that. All you can control is your state and how you feel at any given moment and what version of yourself you put on that field, not only for yourself, but for the guys around you. Because those guys stick around and they play for a long, long time.
Yeah, if you can't figure out how to, as a hitter, pick up the foot like a motherfucker, even when you don't feel well, even when things haven't been good for you lately, your career is going to be cut short. The biggest chokehold on any player's career is their own psychology.
Yep.
So, are you going to let your psychology be a chokehold? No. I say don't do that.
Yep.
Demand more. Take ownership. Take command of your state, no matter what is going on around you, and give people your best, and give your career your best.
Yep.
It's the only way to do this and not have regret at the end of it.
Yep.
And there's no faster way to stand out.
That's what I was just going to circle it back to. Guys, if you are a high school guy looking to get picked up, you're going to have guys out to see you. You're probably going to go to perfect game tournaments. You're probably going to go to Indy for a PBR tournament, Grand Park. You're going to play in these big environments with everybody out there. But if you can find a way to control how you feel and how you carry yourself at any given moment, those coaches back there are going to be like, oh, shit. Because they all are going into it, I would expect, with the context and from a lens of, oh, these guys are probably going to be kind of nervous, but how can I see them in the future, right? How can they bring value to my team, right? So they're expecting guys to be kind of nervous, kind of rattled. Some of them. I would say that's probably fair to say. But if you can go out there and show no signs of weakness, no signs of being nervous, geeked, rattled, you just go out there and be a dog and play that game, you are going to stand out to everybody around you.
Even if you don't do anything, even if you don't get a pitch to hit or a ground ball to field, there's power in a guy who knows how to carry himself, even without opportunities, right? They can tell. That guy's different.
Yep.
There's something about him. We don't know what it is, but we've all seen it.
Yep.
We've seen it in that player. We can't explain it, but we're like, that guy's different.
Yep. Now, I'm not trying to circle this back to me and say that I was that guy at that age, but remember when I got picked up to go to Baylor? Coach Rod came to Indianapolis, and he was there to see a different guy who ended up being drafted by the White Sox. He went to see him. He didn't know who I was. He came, or he said he didn't
Addison
know.
Coffee.
Yeah.
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 And he just didn't like the way he played. He was too lackadaisical, lazy, didn't seem to compete. And then he heard me barrel one in that right center gap, came around, saw who it was, saw me around in second. I was fired up. He's like, all right, well, I like that. And that was the game where I said I wasn't going to freaking look in the stands at all. And then I just went out there and competed, laid out for balls, freaking dropped third strike, beat that throw out, just carried myself like I was an absolute dude. And at that point, I spent some of the summer not believing I was that dude, but I made a decision to carry myself like I was that guy. And it flipped that switch in my brain. I'm like, you know what, man? I am that guy. And then next thing I know, he comes out the next day on a Sunday, hiding in the trees, and I just play like that again. And next thing I know, bam, whole process is over. I'm signed to a Big 12 school.
And that is a absolutely 100% true story.
Yeah.
The game after that conversation we had at breakfast,
Yep.
when you got that visit pulled,
Yep.
you're like, fuck it, I'm not doing this anymore.
Yep. I'm done.
And it was that game that happened.
It's crazy.
But that's how recruiting works. Right guy at the right time, which you can't control. And if you would have known that and hadn't come to that decision and that moment where you were just like, fuck it, I'm letting go, that probably doesn't happen.
No. That's the power of making a decision and not caring about what's going on around you. It circles back to that same point. You cannot let external factors dictate how you feel and how you use your physiology at any given moment. Because like you said, it could happen in a split second. You could catch a barrel off a guy at a perfect game tournament throwing 95 with no other offers, no other schools showing much interest in you. Barrel that baseball up and just show effort, carry yourself like a dude, and have 10 schools call you. It's amazing how that process is frustrating for a lot of guys, but that's how simple it is sometimes. And it's more likely to happen for you like that if you go out there and just try to abuse people and not let all that other shit get to you in any single way.
Yeah, if you're begging for that one barrel, that leads to 10 schools jumping on you, and it ain't coming.
Right.
That barrel's not coming.
Agreed.
But if you can just go out there and free it up and say, I don't give a shit what happens. I'm not trying to impress these people. I'm just going dick in the dirt. Then it's much more likely to happen. And if it doesn't, you did what you could.
Yeah.
That's what it boils down to.
It's how you sleep at night, knowing you did everything you possibly could. That's why I don't have any regrets looking back on my career. Obviously, I could sit, look into details, and be like, man, I really wish I would have done that different. Because I did spend a lot of my career playing like a bitch. Let's just be honest. I did. For certain periods of time, I played weak. But I figured it out. And now I look back and be like, okay, I figured it out. I finished strong as I could given all these circumstances. But now that has prepared me for this next chapter in my life to where I got to figure out who I am off that field. I got to figure out what I want to do and what I'm about and what kind of impact I'm going to make on everybody else. And that has turned into what we're doing here, you know?
And that's ultimately most important. I mean,
Yeah.
Our baseball careers, like, they're this long ultimately. And I'm an almost 50-year-old guy, but, you know, my lens is a little bit different.
Yeah.
But our careers are short. Even, you know, you're 20, 25. Like, it's a short period of time. But this becomes a discipline that will serve us even bigger, even better down the line. Because it doesn't go away. Once you develop the habit, the discipline of demanding more, that's the key to the city at that point.
Yep. No doubt. It's good, man. And one thing that I think players can do if they're looking to take that first step and playing with certainty and not letting outside factors dictate how they feel, right? I think if you start with making quick decisions every single day. I was thinking about this morning because sometimes I find myself kind of getting in my own head, right? Human being, it happens, right? But I decided when I decide that I want to do something, whether it's get up in the morning or turn that shower to freaking cold or start writing out content, which will be coming out soon, right? I'm going to do it right then. I'm not even going to think. I'm not going to let myself picking up my freaking shoes and putting them in my closet where they're supposed to go. Making those decisions right away and not giving yourself any opportunity to push it off, that is incredibly rewarding, but it also gives you those tools and that discipline to translate that to the field, in my opinion. I don't know. I just wanted your thoughts on that.
There are common threads in successful people. And I'm not talking about just successful baseball players. I'm talking about successful on a large scale. People have changed the world. And one of the common threads is successful people make decisions quickly, and they're slow, very slow, and rarely change them.
Mm-hmm.
So yes, make decisions quickly. And here's the difference. People who aren't as successful, they'll make a decision, and then they sit there and they look at it and be like, did I make a mistake? And they second guess themselves. The difference is that decision that the successful guy made may have been wrong, but he's damned if he's going to change his mind on it. He's going to get after it and work and figure it out until that decision works out.
Yep.
That's the difference. He's committed to that outcome, and he's going to find a way, period. He's not going to let temporary struggle go, was I right to make that decision? Nah. None of that.
Yep. That also applies to guys that head to a school, like just got there, right? Starting practices, might find out that they fucking hate it, right? Wrong place for them at that moment, or that's what they feel like. So they are regretting going to that program. It doesn't mean you bail. It means you figure it out. And if it's still not the place for you at the end of it, but you spent the entire fall working your ass off, getting better and playing with certainty and controlling how you feel, if it's still not the right place for you, okay, transfer. But at least you know you gave it everything and you're going to make it hurt when you leave. But that's the power of making a decision. These guys, when they realize that they chose the wrong program, they sit and stew in it. Oh man, like this sucks. I can't believe it's happening to me. I can't believe that I was led astray. I was thinking it was going to be something different, which very well might be true. But if you take that lens and let that be your focus, you're fucked.
Yeah, because everywhere you look is more evidence of why it was a mistake and why you were lied to. That is coming from a perspective of weakness.
Right.
And it's very easy. It's tempting. It's sexy. It's everywhere.
Right.
But again, that's not what men do. We don't do that. You made a decision. You're there. And the mindset is, I'm here. I'm staying here.
Yeah.
And that may change at the end of the semester, but do not stew in that all semester long. You made a decision. You work to make it right, to where it's not a mistake.
Yep.
It's the only way to approach it.
And no matter what program you're at, you can look at a different program and be like, it could be better over there. Honestly, anybody can sit and think that the grass is greener someplace else, right? But no matter where you go, it doesn't matter if you're at TCU or if you're at a freaking junior college in middle of Kansas. If you can't figure out who you are and play cocked up and control your physiology and your focus at that place, no matter where you go, it's not going to feel like the right fit because you aren't going out there and being yourself and giving it everything you've got. Because coaches can smell weakness from a mile away. They can smell a guy who's insecure, who's fearful, who's anxious. They can sniff that out. And I hate to break it to you, but for the majority of coaching staffs, they're going to be like, all right, next, find somebody else who isn't playing like a bitch. That's just a reality. And should it be that way? Maybe, maybe not. Sometimes you'll get lucky and have a coaching staff that'll see your potential and try to build you up and know what you're capable of, and then you turn into that guy with that help. Great, whatever. But you don't need that shit. You don't need it.
No, that would be great if that happened.
Yeah.
But you'd be insane to expect it because
Exactly.
you're going to be let down.
Yep.
And you just have to take command of your focus, take command of your path forward, essentially. Because there's no quicker way to get sorted out than to let all those external factors chip away at your belief. Because when you're in a position of weakness, you become one of those guys who darken the room. And I think the worse those factors are out there, the more you have to go inward and force yourself back to a place where you're bringing the energy.
Right.
And then that becomes a habit. And there's no better habit that any of us can get into
No.
than taking control of our own state and giving the best of us to everyone around us.
It's about finding that balance to where you're locked in. The internal dialogue is, I am the best dude out here and I'm going to abuse you. But I also find for my own career, I played my best when I was out at that field and I was playing, whether I was hitting or I was playing third. I felt like in here, I was better than everybody else. But when I got to that dugout, not only was I checking guys when they were breaking bad, but I was building them up. I was building them up when I was hurt, 2 spine surgeries. Couldn't bend, twist, or turn. I'm hobbling in that dugout like I'm freaking 95 years old. I didn't sit and feel sorry for myself. I saw that dude struggling. I'm like, hey, figure your shit out. You are a dude. There's a reason why you're here. There's a reason why you're hitting 3-hole. Figure it out. Know who you are. And it's amazing how much more rewarding your career is when you take that lens and that focus, but it also just makes everybody around you better.
Yeah, the guy who really is comfortable in his own skin, who is certain about his own abilities, he's not insecure, so it's easy to build up the guys around him because he's not threatened by them.
Right.
The focus going inward, that is that internal dialogue that keeps us sharp, that keeps us in state. But it's very healthy to look to what's going on with everybody else, to be in tune, to build those guys up because they're your teammates. I mean, often we take this approach that we're competing with the guys around us, and in a way we are. We're talking internal dialogue there, but those guys are your boys. Those are your teammates. And building them up, I mean, that's the most rewarding thing. When you're giving to the people around you, that's magical. But it only happens when you're super secure inside, in here.
That's a great thing for young guys to keep in mind, especially freshmen. If they're getting chirped, if they're getting ripped to shreds, older guy running his mouth, he's insecure as hell. And he's shitting his pants thinking that you or somebody else is going to take his job. So he's doing everything he can to tear you down. So if you know that going in and it's happening to you, it's easier to just go like, okay, dude, fine. Fine. And then not let it get to you because that guy's just threatened.
Yeah, just see it for what it is.
Yeah.
And, be nice to him. Just because people are shitty to you doesn't mean you gotta be that guy back to them.
Exactly.
Demand more.
Yep.
Build that guy up.
Yep. That's that balance that we're always talking about. You get the internal dialogue, I'm the man. I'm going to fucking bury you. But on the outside, you're secure in yourself and you don't feel the need to justify your actions or to show everybody and tell everybody how good you are because you know who you are.
Yeah, show them, but don't tell them.
Right. Yeah.
That's the balance.
That is the key to having success in this game.
I agree.
That's the bottom line. Is there anything else you think, besides controlling your physiology and your focus and that internal dialogue being just that bulldog rip from Yellowstone mentality, is there anything else you think that we can dive into that can help guys stand out aside from that?
Energy level, to me, is a big one.
Yeah.
Having energy, having bounce out there on the field when you're doing your thing, being locked in, but also slowing the game down mentally. Bounce externally, but super slow, calm down mentally. That's the guy that looks different. He's not preoccupied with himself and how he's coming across and what the people in the stands think or what the scouts think or the staff or the guys in the dugout. The guy who's quiet, who's slowing it down, that's the guy that's just different because he's focused on the ball and he's got feel for the game, the speed of the game, because he's not obsessed about himself.
Right. Yeah, that's good.
Find a way to be comfortable in your own skin.
Yeah, that is the secret to everything, especially getting recruited. It goes back to what we were saying. If you can go out there and know who you are and be cocked up, but also just slow it down. Slow it down. Because you can be in peak state. For a lot of guys, peak state is what's going on in here and having energy, but this is still slow. It's slow. Because that's how you make in-game decisions that a lot of guys aren't paying attention to, that show your high-level baseball IQ, that will separate you from everybody else. Because most players are going to go out there with guys seeing them and just be erratic and freak out and be so far out front on an 0-0 fastball. You know what I mean?
Oh, there's nothing worse than being geeked and you get that fastball that leaks out over the middle and you miss it because you're geeked. If you had just slowed the thing down,
Yep.
you flush that thing and you don't waste a cock shot. And the greats always find a way of slowing the game down. The more pressure that's building, the more they're able to just stay loose and slow everything down. And that's a habit. We're all capable of doing it. We just have to be mindful in the moment of like, whoa, am I sped up here?
Yep.
Like things are moving fast. Am I sped up? And just reminding yourself in that moment, that might be all it takes to stay slow.
Right.
And not panic. Because to me, there's nothing that screams leader, that screams special, that screams dude, than a guy who can stay chill and keep proper context when everybody else is geeked and sped up.
That's good, man.
Yeah.
It's really good.
And it's just a habit, man. Stay slow, slow it down.
If you can build, and all these things that we're talking about, yes, it applies to the game. It's going to make you a whole different player. But like we said, it ties back into your life, being a human being, being a man, being a guy that people can rely on and depend on, knowing that you are going to come through and stay true to your word. That starts by freaking staying true to yourself, man. I know that firsthand. Get up in the morning. Don't let that alarm go off twice. Don't press snooze. It's 25 degrees outside. Yeah, you should probably go hop in an ice bath. You know, like just things that are hard, things that you said you were going to do. Just freaking keep your word and do it. You feel like you don't want to take fungos after practice, but you said you would. Do it. Do it. Do your homework when you said you were going to do it.
Yeah,
That's where it starts.
Pick up the phone and call your mother or your father back.
Exactly. Stay in touch.
How we do anything is how we do everything. And if you let one aspect of your life, you get weak there because you're not demanding the most from yourself, it's easy to let that leak over into the bigger things like schoolwork,
Right.
baseball even. A guy who controls his state controls his state. Yes, you're going to have moments where you're like, oh shit, I haven't been doing it.
Right.
But keep demanding more, keep noticing, keep checking in with where you're at, keep demanding more.
Oh yeah. That was pretty raw.
Yeah. Well,
Good.
yeah, good stuff.
All right. If you guys have anything else you want us to talk about, comment it down below. And if you wouldn't mind giving us a review if you're listening on Spotify, that's how we get more views. That's how we grow. That's what we're trying to do, is reach a massive audience and help as many guys as we can. So leave a comment. You guys have already been doing that. We're so grateful. Share it with your buddies. Share it with your buddies' parents. We're just trying to get this word out there because we're not making any money on it, which is fine. It's not why we're doing it. But we'd love if you guys would leave us a review, comment, and we're just going to keep diving into this stuff. So
Yeah, we appreciate you guys, though.
yeah, no doubt. Thank you for the support. 207 subscribers, baby. We're going to keep growing.
Early
So,
days.
Yep, no doubt. We're not stopping. All right. Thanks, guys.